You say, well, I'm strong, I work out a lot. Okay, can you swim to Hawaii? Can you go 6 months without food? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Well, good luck with that. Can you fly? Do you know what I'm saying? Don't take this out of context. Don't misuse this. We all have physical limits. Accept our human limitations. Accept. Turn to your neighbor and say, I have limits. Did you choke when you said that? Some of you couldn't even say it. You were like, limits. I have limits. You can't even, that's like saying a cuss word, right? That's like, woo, foul ball. I have limits. Psalm 119:96, to all perfection I see a limit. We all have limits. We constantly overestimate our abilities and underestimate the problems, how much energy it'll take, how much time it'll take. We all do that. How many of you have a list of things to do and it goes just as you planned? Well, back in 78, seriously, we all have limits. We all have human limits. Let me explain them. First, physical limits. You say, well, I'm strong, I work out a lot. Okay, can you swim to Hawaii? Can you go 6 months without food? But the verse, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Well, good luck with that. Can you fly? Do you know what I'm saying? Don't take this out of context. Don't misuse this. We all have physical limits. Because otherwise you're saying, I can do more and take on more stress. I can take on more debt. I can take on more difficulties. And then you're just going to pull the ripcord to Jesus and say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's just a misuse. So the next thing would be emotional limits. Now, this one is harder to judge, in my opinion, or it was for me. I didn't even know that I emotionally had a limit. I think it's been within the last maybe 5 years. I kind of told my testimony and how we went through a time, I think it was about 14 years ago, where we had some tragedies happen with families in the church, much smaller church, and we were kind of doing everything, right? So we were holding some people's hands, and as soon as that one kind of felt like it was a little better, another tragedy hit. Then we were having some difficulties with family. It was just bam, bam, bam. And I had never experienced that I could recall where I needed to realize that I needed some margin and I had some emotional limits. I had no idea. Dean had to point it out. He said, I think we've been doing CPR on others for so long, we're completely out of breath, completely out of emotional energy. So I had to learn how to rebuild and find some margin. Next, mental limits, the mental overload. What you're thinking about. Can't shut your brain off at night. Don't have time to think. I have this new thing I'm trying. When I get into my car, you know how your Bluetooth will usually automatically connect if you've got a car that does that. And I typed in once, and I think Dean had even told me about it, soaking worship. What's kind of nice is it's not like a worship song that I want to sing to, which is kind of good because it just allows me to relax and all. So here's my deal. Okay, I need to get this one done and get this done. I have this appointment. Hurry, get in the car. You need to get to the... it's like... it's like, play a different note, play a different chord, right? It's kind of amazing. This is how I knew it was good. Dean was in my car. He's not supposed to drive. It's like the first week he'd had surgery, and so he's in the passenger seat. We get in, and he starts going, and like he maybe made it 6 minutes. He goes, you're going to have to turn that. He goes, I am going to fall asleep and fall out of the car. But it is such a good reminder for me as I busy, and then I get in the car and I hear that and it's like, okay, soaking worship. This is awesome. Now, there are times where it's like, gonna have to get a little more, but most of the time it's really good for me. We just tend to try to occupy every little space in our mind, every mental little limit. You know you're over your mental limits is when you do what I mentioned earlier, where you loop at night. You have your phone or a pad and a pen near you so that as you think of something during the night, you have to get up and write it down so that in the morning you can remember, because you're sure you're going to forget, and you probably will. The point is, Fred, you should be sleeping. Give it a rest. But you can't turn it off. You're looping. Maybe it's worry. That's when potentially your mental limits are taxed. It's too much. All right, what's next? Time limits. Time limits. Some people will save time. Listen, you figure how to do that for the next day and bottle it and push it back out the next day, you let me know. Because you really can't save time, put it in a jar and get it back out. But we have 24 hours in a day, 365 days in a year. And if you've got more than that, you're going to have to let me know, because there's a limit on time. And then last, we have space limitations. You cannot be in more than one place at one time. I wish I could be at work, but also be with my family, or get this meeting done, but have the meal cooked, or there's space limitations. You get to be in one place at one time. So how do we know when we're on overload? There's some pain points. You've exceeded a limit, and I'm just going to be super honest. Here's how I know that I have no margin. I'm irritable. Do not tell my husband. I'm irritable.